There are certain prospects that when I sit there and I look at where they're kind of being mocked and where I see them being ranked, I'm a little surprised. Now, sometimes that'll be because I think a player is being rated way too highly. But then on the flip side, there are also those players that I think are rated way too low. And maybe that's a little bit easier to do with this year's wide receiver class because, again, I'll keep talking about and keep emphasizing it just how good of a wide receiver class this really truly is. But one person that I've sat there and seen a lot of late second to early to mid third round grades on, and I frankly don't understand it and don't get it, is Jordan Matthews from Vanderbilt. When I look at him, I sit there and I say, what am I seeing that a lot of other people aren't seeing? When I look at the strengths of his game, this is a guy that's what, maybe about 6'2.5", 6'3", maybe 215, 220 pounds. He has pretty close to that prototype NFL size to play outside and be a number one NFL wide receiver. And he has some of the skill sets to justify that feeling because he does at times look like he could be a future number one wide receiver at the NFL. When you look at him for that size, he has some really, really good speed, and it really showed up on the film. And it wasn't a surprise at all to me to see how well he ran at the combine because I'm like, okay, that validates what I saw during his play in 2013. This is a guy that could really open it up. This is a guy that can have no trouble stretching opposing defenses vertically. He is a guy with some legit deep speed and can be a home run weapon at the National Football League level. But he is more than just a speed threat on the outside. This is a guy that I saw be able to go over the middle, make the tough catches, make the athletic catches in the red zone, go win the jump balls, demonstrated some really, really good hands and some nice route running ability. And for somebody that played in what everybody loves to talk about every year as being by far the best conference in college football in the SEC, you wonder if this kid played in an Alabama or an LSU if we'd be talking about a Jordan Matthews as a top 10 pick. And we aren't. And I think that is owed a lot to the fact of the program that he played in at Vanderbilt. Not a terrible program, but let's face it, Vanderbilt is no Alabama, they're no Texas A&M, they're no LSU, if you get my drift. A lot to really like about his game. In terms of any weaknesses in his game, he's not a guy that I think has tremendous run after the catch ability. In terms of if you send him over the middle, is he going to make a bunch of people miss? I don't know. I don't think, even though he has great deep speed, he's incredibly agile or anything like that. He showed a okay ability to run all the necessary routes at the NFL level, but again, it's something that you could always work on, and it's something I think he could work on and improve and become that much more lethal. There were times where you saw him catch a lot of quick screens and quick slants, so I wonder how effective he will be able to get open at the NFL level on the 10 to 15, 20-yard routes. But I'm kind of nitpicking here because as I went back and watched him, I started thinking more and more, I'm like, man, this guy is a really good prospect. And I have him rated as a late first to early second round pick. And in other draft classes, he might be the number 2 or number 3 wide receiver on the board. He's not the best wide receiver that I've seen, but I think he's a lot better than he's being given credit for. A highly productive player in the toughest conference in America, according to all the media and most of the fans. And he was a guy that had some big time performances and played very well and showed very well for himself. He showed that ability to me to be a big time explosive weapon on the outside at the National Football League level. Now, he's not somebody you're going to really line up in the slot a lot, other than to try and generate a mismatch. He's not going to be the guy that you want to make a living going over the middle and making people miss that way. It's just not going to be his game. He's a guy that you're going to want to line up outside as your flanker that can stretch the field vertically. In terms of an NFL comparison for him, I compare him a lot to a Josh Gordon. And it's funny with Josh Gordon coming out of Baylor, he was a second-round supplemental draft choice. And it's one of the few really, really good moves Cleveland's made in recent years. Josh Gordon, if you had to do it again, is worth a first-round pick, not a second-round supplemental pick. And the fact that somebody is going to be able to get a Jordan Matthews probably in round 2, and who knows, maybe even in round 3, we could be looking back at it and saying, what the hell was everybody missing? This guy is an absolute steal. If I had to put my money on one wide receiver being a real big-time steal in this 2014 NFL draft, when we look back at it 3, 4, 5 years from now, I think it very well could be Jordan Matthews from Vanderbilt. It would not surprise me to see him among the top 2 or 3 rookies in terms of receiving yards and touchdowns in 2014. I think he's that talented, and I think he's that explosive, And I think he's going to catch some people by surprise. The team that takes him, I think, is going to be very, very happy with the player that they get.